to Venture Cafe Presents. I'm Christine Dunn. Joining me today is Justin Kang. He's the Executive Director of City Awake. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So Justin, tell us a little bit about City Awake. What was the genesis behind this organization?
So City Awake, we're trying to build an impact ecosystem here in Greater Boston. It's really modeled after the many efforts in the technology community to break down the silos to connect entrepreneurs to investors, government officials, academics to the startup community. My first job out of college was at Mass Challenge in 2009. And if you ask anybody before 2009 to describe the technology community, I think they would often say very siloed, sort of top-down exclusive. But 6 years later, because of initiatives like Mass Challenge, Venture Cafe, you see the technology community be much more accessible, booming, and not just those anecdotal stories. Statistically, the needle has been moved, where there's been $1 billion more invested in Boston-based startups. Last year, we had 3 major IPOs. So there's been trends showing that Boston, the tech community, has been moving forward, right? So every city now wants to be this tech hub, which is very important. Our hypothesis is that if we can create similar sector-building initiatives around the social enterprise and nonprofit sphere, that can make a huge difference in terms of moving the needle around different social issues. So what we're trying to do is break down many silos, whether it's connecting philanthropists to the entrepreneur, to connect similar youth development serving organizations to each other to create more collective impact solutions. We're trying to be that backbone organization to help facilitate all that interactions.
Now, I'm sure that a lot of social entrepreneurs experience a lot of the similar challenges that, a for-profit entrepreneur would, but there must be some unique qualities for social entrepreneurship that you experience and that you need to help guide the community. So if you had to give some examples, what would those be?
I mean, you're absolutely right. Normally, there's absolutely similar principles in terms of like strong team, strong revenue model, whether it's philanthropic combined with other sort of fee-for-service models. But at the end of the day, you have an additional sort of thing to worry about, which is the community impact that you want to do. Right, so for them, it's not just about maximizing revenues for your shareholders. It's about how you can actually improve the lives of the stakeholders that you care about, whether it's the homeless, whether it's the hungry, children, etc. It's something that you also have to include in your solution.
And you actually started as a festival, right? So how did that festival model work?
So the festival was actually an inspiration that I learned from Mass Challenge. So when I started at Mass Challenge, I used to ask the CEO, why are you starting an accelerator? And he said it was an artificial reason to bring all the stakeholders together, the entrepreneurs, the mentors, the academics, government officials, talent, etc. So we wanted to have a similar vehicle to use, but we didn't want to start an accelerator right off the bat. So we thought the festival had that similar convening power. Which it did. So we had small ambitions. It was a volunteer team, and we hoped to maybe do 10 days, 30 events, maybe 100 partners. But because of sort of the need, like just this desire that we found in the community, we ended up with 10 days, 99 events, 250 plus partners, 10,000 attendees, and a million views on Twitter on the first day. With our hashtag, and ultimately, this was on a shoestring budget of less than $10,000, right? So I think it's partially because, we had a great team, but I also think it's because the demand was there, because people in the impact community oftentimes are sort of craving this similar focus that the tech community has around sector building. So we saw that demand, and now we're transitioning into a full-blown organization.
Now, is there a certain demographic that you tend to attract in terms of the people who become social entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think right now City Awake is very much steered towards the Millennial Generation. I don't think that's a coincidence, as a lot of research shows that within that generation, it's much more, their focus is much more purpose-driven and aligning their careers with purpose and impact. But what we hope to do as we begin becoming a full nonprofit is to start to expand our horizons to not just be limited to one generation, because we think it's such an important part that intergenerational relationships is very important as well.
Interesting. Now, City Awake, interesting name.
Yes.
So where did it come from?
It's a poem by the poet Tagore. He wrote a poem called that has the last line. He was an Indian poet during the when India was fighting for its independence. He wrote this poem, and in it talks about how he dreams of this country of independence and freedom and equality for all. And the last line, it says, "Let my country awake." So it was always my favorite poem, and I thought the last line was particularly poignant. So instead of country awake, we changed it to city awake.
So when you first started down this road of exploring the innovation and entrepreneurship community, did you imagine that you were going to go into social entrepreneurship, or did you kind of fall into it?
That's actually a great question. Yeah, so I always had this bent towards the social impact community. I actually just lucked into a job at Mass Challenge. In college, I was a traditional activist, marching in rallies, protesting, and that's always sort of my, the essence of me. But I lucked into this job at Mass Challenge. I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I didn't know what startups were, and it was a great sort of introduction to the community. And it's been really fascinating to see over the 6 years how vibrant this community has become with initiatives like Mass Challenge, Techstars, Boston O, Venture Café. Over the 6 years, it's been sort of me just learning as much as possible around community building and now trying to translate that into the impact community.
So when you think about impact, what kind of impact do you hope to have on the social entrepreneurship community?
We hope that eventually that we can create a real robust impact community. For us, it's about changing the dialogue. I think still traditionally most people think impact is this fad or this trend. But when the governor of Massachusetts, Governor Patrick, he could easily ran for president, but he decides to start this impact investing fund at Bain Capital. We think that the trend is starting to become an official economy. We think that as much as someone starts a business, they care about the revenue, they're also going to care about their societal impact just as much. So it might still seem hokey right now, but we think 5-10 years down the line, that's going to be sort of just assumed that as just as important. So we hope to lead that dialogue there.
This is kind of part of already a national trend that we're starting to see, right? I mean, you have sister organizations in other parts, like Washington, D.C. has a very vibrant social entrepreneurship community. So have you started to come together? Are you building a coalition?
We hope to. There's a lot of great initiatives within Providence and Austin and D.C. and a lot of national sector building organizations. There's organizations like New Profit, Ashoka, Echoing Green that are leading the dialogue globally and nationally. I think there's starting to be a lot of initiatives focusing on around building citywide ecosystems versus building national or global hubs. So that's something that is really, I think, timely and just a natural continuation of the lessons learned by some of these great organizations like Ashoka, Echoing Green, and New Profit.
What do you think is driving the demand for creating social entrepreneurship enterprises?
I think it's largely that it's just a lot to be seen in terms of just how the world is right now. And I think there's been, thought process around how social change happens now that you started a nonprofit. It's very direct service. And there's, I think, a demand now to use these technologies, these new sort of things that we learned in the for-profit sector to broaden it out more, to make it sort of universal and not just limited to just like high-tech enterprises, but how can a high-tech enterprise also do social good as well? And not just about like, hey, let's start a soup kitchen, which is all completely admirable, but how else can you maximize that as well using technology?
So when you think about social enterprise, are there certain industries or aspects of social enterprise that tend to get the biggest amount of focus? Like, are there certain trends within social entrepreneurship that you're seeing?
I see it happening across every sector, right? Like from homelessness to education, everyone is thinking through how to use technology or how to use new revenue models to think through scaling their model. So whether it's using, massive online courses as a way to educate everybody, whether it's using mobile devices to use doctors to diagnose people in different countries. It's happening, I think, in every sector. Obviously, I think there's more buzz, trend-worthy ones, but I think ultimately every industry is thinking through this because even for philanthropies, they don't want to just give away their money anymore. They want to make sure that each dollar spent is maximized as much as possible. So it's hard in the traditional direct service model because it's so human capital intensive. So you're thinking through how to use technology and other means to get the biggest bang for your buck.
Greater accountability as a result.
Exactly. Yep.
Interesting. So a year from now, where do you want to be?
We want to be a real organization. So we're filing our nonprofit incorporation now, getting our board of directors. We finalized our initial seed funding. So for us, we want to. This year, our motto is to experiment till it hurts a lot. We're trying out many different programs and projects from accelerators, classes, workshops, competitions, mini funds. We have 6 sort of pilots happening right now, and we hope that in year 2, year 3, year 4, we get to understand our core competencies. We want to make sure that people realize that it's not just a festival, but what we're trying to do is build this ecosystem more than anything.
Wonderful. Well, Justin, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today. Venture Cafe presents.
Awesome. Thank you so much.